Providing the
Yeah,
live stream's going now.
It's 17,000 tax deduction, part of the taxable income. The tax bracket, you know, that's only a tax deduction, you only get good, so it's the tax, so.
Kia ora tātou. Nau mai haere mai ki te hui o te Public and Active Transport Committee. Welcome to our meeting today. Microphone, please. To run that again. Nau mai haere mai. Ki te hui o te Public and Active Transport Committee. So welcome to the meeting of the Public and Active Transport Committee. I'll open us with karakia. So, tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki waho, tuia ki roto, tuia ki te here tangata, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao. Homie, huie, tāpie. Thank you all for being here. Apologies, we've got one from Councillor Noon. Any other apologies? Heard from others? So maybe we'll just note.
Was Gary Redmond?
Yeah, potentially.
We're not sure. Oh, Michael was here. Welcome, Michael. Nice to see you there on the screen. And so I think we'll just put an apology for Gary for the time being, for lateness. Okay, so that's that public forum. No requests to address the committee. That's good. Confirmation of the agenda. Everybody happy with the agenda? Confirm that. Do we need to move in? Move in seconder. Seconder Elliot. Lovely. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Members are reminded of the need to stand aside from decision making when a conflict arises between their role as an elected representative and any private or other external interests they might have. The register of pecuniary interest can be found on the OIC website. No presentations today, and should have confirmation of minutes from the meeting of 5 March. Everything was read. Gretchen and Kate, so moved Kate, seconded Gretchen, thank you. Action register, as far as I can tell, is what's that? Oh, all aye, thank you, all in favour. Aye, thank you. And so we'll move on to the action register. It's one item there, and it's about the Super Gold concession on Route 1. And we direct staff to communicate this decision to the Waikawaiti Community Board and to the general public. So that will happen once those RPTP decisions are in the public arena, which comes up later this month. Don't need to do anything with that, so we'll move on. Matters for consideration. 9.1. We'll move into this operating environment. We've got some, it's a moving feast, I would say. Welcome, Anita. She can tell us all about it. We've got quite a lot going on in the operating environment, and of course we are operating under a very different and new GPS, which is difficult. Welcome, Anita. Thank you for the report. It's been written by Lorraine Chang. It's not with us today, but you can just take us through that.
Yeah, and I'll take no credit for writing the report. That was Lorraine, but she's not here today, so I'll just take the report as read. I'm happy to answer any questions where I can. I'll just caveat that to say there may be some things I'm not clear of and I need to go and come back on those, but I'm across most of the issues, so fingers crossed.
So basically we've got the MOE, Ministry of Education, continuing to roll back the bus services. We've got a solution for the bike racks. Thank you for that. E-signage. Second, emissions reduction schemes seems to pull back from transport as a primary mechanism. Something there, private share targets that we're having to cope with and bring in. And of course, the exciting news, Mosgiel On Demand and Queenstown extended services start at the end of this month, and there's some changes in Queenstown with increased frequencies in some areas, but noting that there's still big issues in Queenstown that are having the media. On that goes. Patronage still going up everywhere too, which is good. Kate.
Please tell me if I should bring this up in the next paper, but this paper talks about the Unit 1 and Unit 2 new contracts going out. And what was very clear through, and the brilliant submissions that came through the RPTP, is a underlying concern that there are some trips that just are not well supported and could be an opportunity to reconsider funding going to other services. And so I'm bringing it up here, it's really for the next report, is that I don't want us to have the clarity of the numbers on every group, but I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can actually be certain before we contract that the routes that we've got and their number of services are the best investment we can have. And because there is a huge desire for other investment. And given the current environment, that lack of ability to reinvest is, and it's just some doubt about it. So I just welcome whether that can be allayed, those concerns in some way.
So through the chair, part of the work that the team are doing now in terms of getting ready for that Unit 1 and Unit 2 re-tendering is actually doing some network reviews. So they're looking at where the routes are going, how to optimise the network and things like that. So that will be part of what informs what goes out to tender, and that will come back to council before it goes out. So we can support that with some more data to help you with that decision.
Thank you very much. That's great to hear. Certainly it's a concern of a lot of people. Thank you.
Any other questions? That looks reasonably straightforward. Go, Tim.
It's green, unfortunately.
Do you want mine?
It just takes a while on that.
Just stop.
Maybe one
Look,
can-
I'll just go ahead. Just observed lately in the ODT, the issues caused by the school kids, Princess Street and the bus hub, and concerns around still the perceived safety at the bus hub. The interesting article in the ODT this morning around the bus hub and a feeling that there hasn't been much done. Could you give us a bit of an update on progress with servicing school children and safety at the bus hub?
You're probably going to say the same thing. So we've got a paper specifically on the advisory group and the work that's been in a report that's just been prepared. So I'll suggest saving that question for paper 9.4,
Sure, yeah.
and then we can have a discussion because I'm imagining there's probably a few questions on that topic. Or so that's probably, if that's all right.
Yep, that's good.
What I will just add is, with regard to the Princess Street bus stop, we know that there's a problem with overcrowding, and that's one of our bus stops that we'd like to extend. So at the moment, there are multiple buses that pull in there at very similar times. So that's on our work plan, excuse me, in terms of infrastructure. And I was going to say one other thing, but it's gone, but it'll come back by the time we get to 9.4.
Good, thanks.
Anything further on the operating environment? Go, Elliot. Thank you.
Just on the Ministry of Education review of school bus services that is discussed here. Just wondering, bringing forward a conversation. I cannot remember what meeting it was that it came up in, but I think it was a letter from Minister David Seymour around school truancy and attendance and stuff, and asking local councils for assistance there. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we can sort of advocate that these issues that are tied together and connected in terms of Ministry of Education and one stream sort of trying to increase attendance and stuff, which obviously really isn't to do with us, but then school bus services and people actually trying to get to school and not being able to, presumably coming into the statistics and tying that while they're reviewing their bus services.
Our staff are happy to draft a letter on behalf of the committee or council if that's what you would like to do. We just need the direction from you to do that.
Do you think it would be helpful? I guess is the
There's a significant challenge across the board at the moment with competing interests of ministries in a tight fiscal environment. So the letter from Minister Seymour was, I think everyone understands the request for support to try and tackle truancy, but there is clearly a connection with the ability for people to get to school, but we know very clearly from the Ministry of Education that they are under clear expectations to give effect to the policy. They raise it regularly, was the update we had from the ministry. They raise it regularly with their minister to say it's an old policy and it would be good to review it and get some clarity on what our role in this is going forward. But there's been no traction on that at the moment. I suspect we all know there's no funding in the system. So, yeah, look, I think we need to continue to engage with Ministry of Education as best we can to provide the best service that we can. I mean, the decision on letters and political advocacy really sits around this table. I'm not sure how much traction that would get at the moment in terms of Minister Seymour's expectations around school attendance and the support councils can give that, and the ability for him to influence the Ministry of Education's decisions on their public transport, on their bus, their transport policies. But again, it's very much an advocacy space, which is for the government's table to determine. Cheers.
Kevin and then Kate.
Around the time of use charging, it says that there will be funds distributed for hopefully roading improvements or whatever, but it is based on first the government getting their operational costs and then paying out the remainder of the remaining of the figure. Has there any indicative figures been given on what that anticipated cost is and their hopeful returns?
No, not at this stage.
Nothing. So it's just a scheme at the moment. And so it's just sticking on that page. I see further down, I've read that we only put a submission in through the territorial authority group, through the council group, and we didn't do one with QLDC. So did we actually lend our support to Queenstown? And if not, why not?
So through the chair, no, we didn't, but we do support time of use charging being a mechanism available to us.
So the nature of the submissions were consistent.
Cool,
Specifically.
I'm just trying to find out if there's anything.
We didn't have a different position to them. We believe it's a good solution.
Got it.
And we support it. We just didn't specifically.
No, that's cool. Yep, that's good. That's all heavy. Yep, good. I just thought if there was an issue that we needed to know about, but if it's not, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. In paragraph 30, and partly touches on what Richard was talking about earlier, there's a remit coming from Nelson and the Mayor. At what stage do we decide if we support or not that or get advice on it? Because it would be substantial ramifications.
So the way that the LGNZ or the annual conference and remits has worked in the past is when we get a full list of remits, Gretchen or staff will email on Gretchen's behalf as Gretchen attends the AGM with another councillor if anyone else is attending this year and seek feedback on the remits so that a position can be established. We've never done it as part of a formal paper. It's done by seeking feedback. So all of the remits, because there'll be a number of them, some of which will relate to us, some of which won't, but they'll all be on the list, and then Gretchen will take that feedback on board in terms of taking part in the AGM process.
Look, thank you. It's just that this one would have some substantial, if it was successful, that's a tick box, and then whether government adopted it, would have substantial effect on our ability and or capability and our the way we did them, and given that I'm just wondering if it's one that we should be getting more information on before we did it or not, or that you're comfortable that we'd have the resources to do it, should it ever be successful. Being successful at local government in New Zealand does not mean that government adopts it. I appreciate that having supported a remit on CATS in 2018, I think it still hasn't come through. They're long, slow processes.
Yeah, I guess the only information I can add is the number of eligible children for the policies that get the subsidy is quite low. And so I don't actually know how much money we would get and what difference it would make in terms of our PT network. So part of the exercise MOE is going through is actually checking who is eligible and then making the decision in terms of withdrawal based on eligibility. And I understand there's a lot of children using the bus who aren't technically eligible to use those buses. So I don't know how big the funding pool would be if it were successful.
It's a significant shift, and that was the discussion, and Gretchen might be able to comment because it was discussed at length actually at the last regional sector meeting in terms of the level of comfort, and it is because it would be a significant shift for an upgrade to take on all school services.
It's huge.
It's huge. So there would be, and your point's a valid one, just because it goes through, the job then to implement that is enormous.
Yeah.
So, and there would be stages throughout that process. We would need to be bringing decision papers back to the table in terms of how we engage with whatever process, if in fact there is one.
And look, I think there's a huge potential to deliver some of our connected communities strategy through it. And in my area, there's a really effective school bus service for children going down to Tāre High. But equally, it would be brilliant if some of the older members of our community could use it. So it would be brilliant. I don't know if there's capacity there, but it comes with some real curly issues as well. And and supporting it and putting it at risk, some services, if they start having to be a numbers game. So I'd hate to break what is a really good service in many parts of our communities already by trying to do something different.
Thank you for that. Also in the operating environment, apart from the time of use charging, it's also the draft minutes from the South Island Regional Transport Committees. And I see we didn't, the letter to the Transport Minister regarding bus egress priority, and we haven't got any movement on that, sadly, but at least we have expressed where we want to go with it. So if there's no more questions, do I have a mover and a seconder to note this report? Just need to note. Thanks, Kate and Elliot. Elliot moved, Kate second, and put that motion. Any discussion first? No further discussion. All in favour, please say aye. Thank you, it's carried. So we'll move on now to 9.2, which is the 9-month network performance report. Again, it's good to see that still performing well, still growth in our patronage. Over to you, Anita, thank you.
I'm actually, excuse me, going to call Julian and Christine over to speak to this paper. They've done.
Can't see either of you through the pillar there, but welcome Julian, welcome Christine.
And we've got Laura coming over too with her TM.
And hi
and
Laura.
There's questions about.
I don't think we've met you before, Christine, so welcome.
Thank you. So Christine Rout is leading our Motu Move transition, but also supporting the team doing some other work. So she's been in terms of the Mosgiel On Demand rollout. But we really value her expertise in the NTS work because it's a constantly moving thing.
It sure is. Okay, well, over to you.
Thank you. So I'll just give a quick summary of the report. So it's a 3-quarter year report. It continues the previous reports, pretty strong performance with Dunedin patronage up 4%, Queenstown up 3%, total mobility up 17%. However, the rate of growth has slowed by about 1% across all modes compared to the previous couple of quarters. I think I mentioned at the previous PATC that patronage is building on extremely strong growth from the previous financial year, where we had full year increases of 21% and 51% respectively for Dunedin and Queenstown. So the trends we're seeing this year are pretty much as expected, but we do anticipate that full year patronage will exceed the previous financial year. And on that, for both Queenstown and Dunedin, 7 of the 9 months in the reporting period were record patronage highs, and we hope that will continue into the new year with the implementation of new routes and timetables as part of the stage 1 of the Queenstown Public Transport business case on 30th of June, and also in Dunedin with changes to the Mosgiel service and the new on-demand service, timetable changes and so on. Total mobility growth continues to be strong, driven by the 75% fare subsidy and an increase of around 140% in clients compared to 4 years ago. In terms of reliability, 99.6% of our services were operated. On the Queenstown Ferry, patronage has dropped 6% compared to the same time last year, but the rate of decline is flattening. And there's been an improvement in the patronage trend in 2025, including a strong February, which outperformed the previous year. So we do see some signs of growth potential there. And on passenger feedback, we recorded 2,655 bits of feedback, representing 0.7% of the number of trips operated during the period, and around half of those were complaints. Council's moved to a new CRM system recently, so from the next report onwards, we'll be able to start drilling down a bit and presenting information at a more granular level, such as by route and contract and so on. So lastly, at the last couple of PATC meetings, we've been asked about reasons behind the drop in revenue versus the increase in patronage. And I think whilst in discussion, I've given high-level explanations related to subsidies and so on. Today, we have Christine, who will briefly explain the deeper dive into this data, which is in sections 19 to 27 on the report. So just over to Christine.
Thanks, Julian. So I think in the previous meeting, Julian outlined the removal of the NZTA subsidies, which happened in May 2024. So that is tied into the, strongly tied into, I would say, the drop in the revenue collection. If we look at the child fare as an example of that, where that used to be subsidised, we moved from that subsidised model into a model where there's no subsidy, but also no fare revenue collection, as that is funded through the council. So that is a complete drop in the revenue, which I think is shown quite well in the chart that you can see, where it explains the drop off at the point of the subsidy removal. We've also seen over that same period a decrease in the amount of people who are paying a cash fare. Cash fares are more expensive than B-card fares. And as that has dropped off, we've seen a loss of revenue in that area. And with the subsidy removal, that was also had quite a large impact on, we had two youth subsidies, one that covered 13 to 18 and one that covered 19 to 24. With the removal of the what we call the Youth Plus, the older group, the 19 to 24, we did see a shift of some of those passengers into the adult fare box, but we don't know how many exactly. But we do know that we had 217,000 passengers in that period that we looked at. And that increase in the adult fare, so 217,000 youth passengers. The increase in the adult fares was only about 184,000 passengers, so we didn't see a full transition across of that user group into the adult fare category as far as we can tell. So that's, I guess, looking at what happened with the fare subsidy removal, the effect on the fare box collection, and how that is tied into increased patronage but reduced revenue essentially. Child use on our buses has increased quite substantially. I think that's something we'd expect to see with essentially a free fare. So we've seen a lot more children using the bus, and obviously with no fare revenue collection and no subsidy, there's no recovery of that cost. So that's what I came to talk about.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would add is what I'd hope we'd start to see from May onwards is that revenue turning around and actually showing an increase, because up until April we've been comparing revenue without NZTA subsidy with revenue with NZTA subsidy, and May last year was the first year where we didn't get those subsidies. So we're actually starting to compare apples with apples, if you like. So last May and this May will both be minus the NZTA subsidies, whereas April this year was minus the subsidy, April last year was with the subsidy. So I'd like to think that with that increased patronage, we should start see those numbers looking a bit more green, a bit less red.
That's great, and thank you, Christine, for that update. Got questions from Tim? Someone else can say, and Elliot.
Just in terms of the reporting of fears, which includes subsidies, it's a little bit, it sort of clouds the issue a little bit in my opinion. I would really like to know what the fears revenue is, but not influenced by subsidies. Is there any way that is there a reason why you include subsidies with fears?
I guess in terms of the subsidies, they are considered fare revenue. They're provided or were provided through NZTA as a partial subsidy of the fare to encourage patronage on buses. And so when we do calculate the fare revenue, we would always include that subsidised portion of the fare because it is money that the council is receiving in terms of the fare collection. I think what Anita has said, where we will see that more accurate comparison of data is from the next period forward. Because those subsidies were removed, they'll no longer appear as part of the fare collection revenue. So you'll start to see a much truer picture of the comparison of the revenue across the categories of fares that we have.
Can I just speak further to that? So in figure 7, we've got 2 buses. So we've got a revenue of 2.2 and an NZ subsidy of $600,000. So the difference between those is fares. And the same for 2 million and 150,000. So we can set that out for you. There's the math there in terms of the actual revenue from the fares.
Okay, that's that one, Elliot.
Yeah, just 2 quick questions. So on the patronage increase, both for the general patronage increase and that 62% increase we had for the under 13s, do we have any idea of whether that is new passengers or existing passengers taking more trips?
We haven't analysed that, but we can do. Generally, we know this from historical times, such as when we transitioned from from the Go card to the B card, that when we make anything free, the number of trips people take escalates dramatically. So I would imagine a decent chunk of it is existing passengers taking multiple trips, but it attracts some new ones as well. But yeah, we can certainly, if council at the table wants, we can make that an action for the next meeting to try and analyse that.
Thinking in terms of that child fare, in terms of guessing whether or not that's removing that would mean some people would stop taking the bus, or whether the people that are just using it more than they would just use it as much as they might need to or something. And then just the other question I had was around mentioned half of the feedback was complaints, around half.
Yeah.
What was the other half? Was it a compliment?
Oh, so there's a variety of things, but it can be like a new bus shelter here. Lost property is a huge proportion of it. We report on it because it's a metric we report on, but yeah, it's stuff that isn't immaterial but constitute a complaint. Even like also positive feedback, there's a lot of positive feedback about drivers. I think that fit in that category too.
Awesome.
Thank you. Question from Kate and then from Kevin.
Thank you. I think it's one for Christine. Look, the table 7, you've got it the bottom line there, and I just think it's worth us keeping on the Super Gold and how that works. I appreciate it's not a subsidy in the same way as the youth rate of child rates were, but you've got on that line that the travel is free. Isn't that a different payment that comes through the government, or in off-peak hours do we get nothing for that? I thought the gold card we got paid for through a different funding.
Get a subsidy for Super. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, so yeah, we do get a subsidy for Super Gold for off-peak travel.
So you've got there, Super Gold passengers increased by 4% with no additional revenue collected in off-peak periods where travel is free. It's subsidised, isn't it, through a different mechanism?
Is it subsidised per person per trip, or is that a subsidy?
Sorry, in budget terms, a different allocation, I think.
It should be there, yeah.
Do you want me to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
please, Nick. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason why they're saying that the additional is getting no revenue is because the Super Gold that we receive for the off-peak is a capped amount. So we are already claiming the maximum we can because they've got a fixed capped amount for their Super Gold subsidy that they'll give us. So now if we increase the Super Gold usage off-peak, we get no additional Super Gold subsidy to reflect that.
Oh, nice.
Sorry. I think we need to mess up that slide. Thank you. That's a very helpful answer.
Kevin first and then Elliot.
So just, sticking on that seven, I've noticed that you haven't got the bike racks back on those drawings, so just on the numbers that you have there, so you've got your 2075,837, which is your revenue. But to compare last time with this time, is simply, shouldn't we just add on the revenue, the NZTA subsidy that we didn't get, and had we got it, we would have actually had an increase in revenue, which of $230,000. So
That's right. So if you look at the raw
we haven't got
numbers,
it,
it's
so that
around
is
about
good.
1.6 last year and 1.8 this year. So it has gone up.
So looking at that, and we're saying we've got an increase in non-fare paying patrons. What is there anything to show that possibly fare paying patrons, because of now either congestion or more people on the buses, have actually stopped using the bus and gone back to their own transport? Is there any way of tracking that?
That's not analysis we have done, but we have talked about an optimal network would have every passenger paying the full fare to maximise revenue, and that's not what we see with children and people who travel for free, non-revenue travellers.
So like to me, that would be, and whether that's because the person's no longer buying a B card or getting on, so that would be really important. I think it would be really important to track that, and that we would then know if what congestion level of service starts becoming problematic, and we should be looking at more, or decisions we're making affecting regular fare payers jumping out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated set of data, but there are ways for people to use B cards, because cash, you can't isolate cash payments to a unique passenger.
Yeah.
But for the B card data, you can, for example, you could take the adult category and look at, unique cards and the use of those cards. And so it's possible to do some sort of analysis around what.
So with subsequent to that, so with a B card, you actually don't know if it's my B. Do you know that it's me flagging on? It's just a number or whatever. You don't actually know if it's me. But once we go to the new system that's coming in, you'd know that it was my Visa card, would you?
So with the B card, it has a unique ID, so we wouldn't know it's yours personally, but we know it's a unique card. So you could, if you wanted to, take that card number and go all unique card numbers, and then analyze that set of data. So go, okay, well, these cards are being used so many times across the year, and actually we did this to the fares, and suddenly all these cards that are in regular use suddenly stop being used.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing.
Yeah. So that is possible.
I might just get Christine to speak to the data under the new system, because we have the B card data. We won't have the Motimove data.
Yeah.
So under Motimove, it won't give you any additional access to particularly individual passenger data. It will be highly secure because people will be using their credit cards. So there'll be even more security control around access to that data under the Motumove system. We should still be able to identify individual passenger use the same way we do under the B card system. That's being worked through as part of that now, and that that multi-tenancy setup with 13 councils being part of that system. How that data is accessed and who can access which data is still being worked through in terms of what does each council need to be able to see to service customers, and what need to be able to see in order to do the type of analytics that we do here today. So yeah.
Thanks for the explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Did you have a question?
Yeah, just on the gold card stuff, I was just wondering, given Nick mentioned would sort of reach that cap, do we know how much above that cap we've gone beyond in terms of usage? Are we at like 150% of what the cap would be?
Not at the moment, no.
Is that data we could get access to?
Yeah, we can look at how much over the cap it is, yes.
Yeah, over deliveries.
Yeah. Well, next.
I think we've got through all the questions there. I've got one myself, and that is about the Queenstown Ferry. Are we in discussions with the new operator? They seem to be having got all sorts of ideas and plans for expansion.
Yeah, so the contract with the previous operator, which was Real NZ, has been novated to new operator, Water Sports. That's a limited term contract, and we're in the process of negotiating a permanent sort of multi-year long-term contract.
Well, thank you very much for that. And nice pictures, the buses. I like those as a way of telling that story. So do I have we just need to note this report, moved by Kate, seconded by Elliot. Any discussion? Yes, please.
I wish to thank you for the report. Great data, and I have to congratulate the people of Queenstown and Dunedin especially who are using the service. It's we need to get more people. The low-hanging fruit in Otago is to reduce our emissions as buses, and it is brilliant to see people doing the right thing. Reading the ODG today and what's happening at the Dunedin City Council, you can't plant your way quite clearly out of reacting to this, and it's good to see that some people are doing it. What we're being hamstrung quite clearly with is the subsidies and the capping of people's and the contributions. What makes it worse, and what was very clear from the NZTA at the RPTP hearings, is even if we wanted to subsidise or continue subsidising what the government has done in the past, we would be probably hit with a stick for doing that. And this is the frustration, that when people want to do the right thing, they're being hamstrung from doing it. And we need to have the data that we've talked about in order to show the government where we are over delivering and the opportunities to do the right, to get the funding. And we need a different way of having those discussions with the government to ensure that we can provide a good service and the opportunity to provide that in a wider Otago context so that everyone can do their bit. And it is frustrating to see that we're being hamstrung with the policies at the moment. Last week we discussed a planner for Otago, funding a planner in the space. It is the one thing that I think we can do as a council to ensure that that money and we is there, that we're planning a connected Otago, whether it be community buses, and again in the ODT today, the story of the wonderful guy in Oamaru providing that service. He was on TV a couple of weeks ago to ensure that there's connectivity for people going to the hospital, especially at a time when the Oamaru house is precarious in its future. These things are what will make a huge difference, and I just want to thank the team. I want to really ask government to be reconsidering the funding, and we need to build the case to do that. We need the planning and the data to do that. we need the resources and the transport team to do that work. And so thank you, but I think there's a real message there that we need to be investing more in this area. Thank you.
Thanks, Kat. Richard?
I can go first.
Richard.
I was just going to say similar to Councillor Wilson and remembering that prior to each of these committees as well, we make sure that we meet with both the Queenstown Lakes District Council and the Dunedin City Council through joint working groups on public and active transport. And that's been going well throughout the triennium, and it's something new that we've instigated this triennium. So this type of report will get presented there as well, so that we have a really integrated understanding of where we're at and the different functions that we can play. But yeah, it's very clear that we need to increase patronage. We need to do that year on year, and we're doing that at the moment. So again, a big thanks for the hard work that's gone in there. But it's against all odds at the moment, really, with some of the policies around funding and also around private share. So to understand that between the councils and what we're working with and the advocacy that we need to do to ensure that we don't have congestion, both Dunedin and Queenstown have that issue and will do into the future even more. So yeah, it's good to be able to have those discussions, but yeah, we've got a big task ahead, and it does need to be data driven, and it does need to be data driven from all of the councils working together. So it's great that we've been establishing that as well. So thank you, Chair.
Elliot?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think good data always leads to further questions and stuff, which is why I'm now curious about that gold card question and the that breakdown question I mentioned earlier. So I think that's just a sign that we are getting some really good data coming through that helps us understand what's going on behind the scenes in these trends. But ultimately just want to recognise the team for a positive trend in terms of patronage and continued positive results even in a difficult, even hostile sort of wider environment. So hopefully we can keep it up a little bit. Yeah, thanks to the transport team.
Thanks for that. And I agree with all that too. We you know, I do think our transport system, our network that we have built is still in its rudimentary phases, but it's got really strong bones, and it's a little bit like a flower coming out of a rock, really. So it's and well done. We've had a really committed team for some years now, and a council committed to it too. So, and obviously people want the system, otherwise they wouldn't have supported it in the way they have. And I was delighted to see the number of trips that ran, because during those COVID years it was very difficult keeping those trips running. What was it, 90, whatever it was? I can't remember the number now, but it was really good and high. And I'm also assuming, just a quick clarification here, that those trips running meaning they're running within the band of on time?
Yeah, correct. So if a bus runs, say 15 minutes later or more, we actually count it as a non-running trip.
That's what I thought. Thanks.
There will be buses running in that sort of 0.4% of missed trips. There'll actually be some running trips that are just running late.
Yeah, so some very, very good stuff there. So congratulations to the team, and thank you, everybody. And is there further discussion, Kevin?
Look, yeah, very encouraging figures that we are getting more people on our buses. We've just got to make sure that it is, in fact, fair playing people as well, and we're not discouraging them. So it'll be good to get deeper into those figures. But the reality is, you may say the market is hard, but there's been a clear signal that there's certainly been a clear signal from ratepayers in my region that if we are going to continually subsidise bus fares by making ratepayers pay more, that they will probably be discouraged for paying rates. So in reality, the government has signalled that they want fare box revenue to increase as a proportion. So we just simply have to get that going. And I don't think that will discourage people using it, because as long as the service is good and it's timely, you'll get the people on there, and we're showing we can deliver that sort of service. So get the fare boxes up, and we'll still have a very good service.
Thank you. Is there, Kate, did you want to do anything final? Elliot seconded, no? Any final? Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Reports noted. So move on. Move on now to the update on the draft Otago Regional Public Transport Plan, which of course we are hoping to adopt later this month. And we just need to note this report.
I've got Daniel joining me up front in case you have any questions. We weren't planning to speak to this at length because it was discussed last week through annual plan deliberations in quite some detail. But we are happy to answer any questions should you have them.
We'll start with some questions and then I'll get Kate to give us a few words about the process. Has anybody got any questions? No? Okay, Kate, shall we?
Normally, Andrew would be here to do this as chair of our committee, and it was I think Elliot, myself and Andrew really enjoyed this experience. Partly because the staff have done a brilliant job at being out in the field and making sure that people submitted. Again, it was a generous response from our community. 549 brilliant submissions, and Andrew has passed on that the thoughtful and he used the words thoughtful and useful submissions. They really were. The people who turned up there were fewer, but the quality was outstanding. And you know, from the schoolgirl from the Peninsula, I'm sorry I haven't had time to check her name, who spoke without a note, but a passion was just asking us to put more buses on for that area. And the high demand there, and how people were now walking what were substantial blocks to make sure that they could get on a bus, and how devastating it was if they were left off. The dog owner who wanted to be able to take his dog to a vet but can't, the dog's too big to put in a cage, and they were really big concerns for people who don't or can't or don't want to drive any longer. To the lady from the Total Mobility who allowed us to interrogate her about the experience and how vital that service is, where it takes about 20 minutes for her to get from the house into the vehicle to get somewhere. She had to come into this room, she had to be dropped at Water Street because there was nowhere else for her to dismount out of the vehicle and get up onto a footpath to get into this building. They're incredibly generous with their, and it makes you really realise how vital these services are. So I'm sorry to share that detail because I don't think next week or next meeting at the council we will have time to share that sort of detail. It was all really, really helpful. But I have to say that the settings at the moment mean that you can't please everyone. And what I should have also added in those examples within absolute demand for a connected Otago and the Triangle of Cromwell, Wanaka, Queenstown, the connections from Balclutha, Oamaru, all of Otago wants to be able to share the service and do the right thing. And it is frustrating that we're not going to be able to deliver that. But the fact that the people had that opportunity, the staff gone out into their communities and people reacted, it was very, very good. So 549 submissions. And that report, which we gave you a draft of anyway last week, will come to the council. But thank you again to the staff and to those people for what was a really interesting experience.
Anything to add, Ian? On that panel?
I mean, I can do it in discussion, but I have to now is just massive thanks to the team both for the actual writing of the draft and the going well above and beyond into the community. I was on the street corner with them a few times, just roping people in from the side of the road to give their thoughts on the buses, which is brilliant. Lots of people happy to share, and as Kate touched on, all the submissions were genuinely there to try and help us make the bus system better. We'll discuss the actual recommendations and what it means and stuff in our full council meeting when that comes. But we got so many compliments really on the actual writing of the plan as well. It seems like it was really well written with clear visuals and stuff to help to guide people through. And 549 submissions is nearly 3 times what we've got in the past. So clearly a big interest in the bus network, and clearly a very well written draft. Obviously very difficult funding environment, but really doing the best we can under the conditions. So yeah, very proud of the team. So just want to say thanks to them and thanks to everyone who submitted. Discuss the content later.
I don't think we had any questions, did we? The staff on this, and so I'm assuming we have a mover and a seconder here, going a little bit backwards. So I'll have that moved by Kate and seconded by Elliot. And I'd also like to acknowledge Andrew, who can't be here today, but for his effort on that. And I would normally have been there, but I couldn't be at the hearings, but I did go through the submissions. And again, same thing, just amazed at the generosity of people to write those thoughts down. But the other thing I noted is they are like that because we respond. We are responding to submissions as best we can. And that I think bodes well as we go on. Anyway, so with that, is there any further discussion, or shall I take your comments as the discussion? Anybody else have anything to add? No, thank you. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, and thank you, team. Well done, and we'll look forward to seeing the report for the full council with that new transport plan. And I should have welcomed you before, Gary Kelleher. I'm sorry about that. Good to have you with us as well. So we'll move on now to the last item to be considered as the Central City Advisory Group report. And I guess this is going to be yours, Anita, and it's one that's difficult. This has come out of the bus hub tragedy, and we now have people looking at safety of our central city as a wider thing. So please, over to you, Anita.
So through the chair, so yeah, that's correct. So the Central City Advisory Group, might be called the Inner City Advisory Group, I might have renamed it accidentally, was set up in response to the stabbing at the hub. Amanda was originally on the group on behalf of ORC, and we've switched places in the last few months, but she helpfully contracted the report that's with you today. So that was an action out of the group. So there is a work plan that's been developed with lead agencies, and this was one of the outputs that we had sought to achieve. It's here just for your information. We thought as a group that the report was easy to read. Had some really simple wins in it, and showed some really clear pathways forward in terms of how to manage the issues. As a group, what we're really conscious of is not picking up the problem from the hub and shifting it somewhere else. So we've been really clear that the focus at the moment is on the hub, and then the focus will shift to make sure that we support the entire inner city area. I'm happy to take questions and yeah, answer anything else.
I was just adding a little bit more in terms of the purpose of this. I think what is known is that anywhere within an inner city environment that results in people congregating, be it a bus hub or a public space, can result in social and behavioural issues, and this is not something that is only an issue in Dunedin. So a big part of this report, as you can see, is trying to take the learnings from other areas where this has already occurred. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to think about what's worked well and what could be applied in a Dunedin context from some of these other examples across New Zealand, and have that start to inform some of the work and the actions that will be applied out of the group. So I think it's a really good place to start, and a really useful tool for that for the group in terms of the actions that are still to come and some of the considerations, looking at what's happened in other places. It is a very complex and difficult issue, and it does involve a number of agencies, and we need to remain engaged as a key partner in that group because of where the bus hub is and the role it plays in the central city as quite critical place for people to transit through and travel to and from work or education or whatever other commitments they've got on. So it is important for us as an organisation to stay well engaged and to ensure we stay on top of any actions or commitments that we make directly into that public transport space.
Tim, did you want to put any?
Yeah, I guess, no, it's a brilliant, it's a really good report. But in terms of, there's a few things that stand out for me. I mean, the bus hub, I don't know how it all was strategically planned to be outside the police station, but I would have thought that in terms of safety, putting a bus hub outside a police station is probably one of the best things you can do. So I'm really interested to know what kind of response the police have to this report and any kind of involvement that they might have, considering it's right on their front doorstep. So that's one thing, and the other thing is just actions that come out of this plan. What is happening next week in order to take into account what we've written here, or has been written here in this report, that will be put in place to ensure that people feel safer at the bus hub.
So through the chair, in terms of your first question around the police, obviously they're an active member of the group and they chair the group at the moment. And one of the actions out of the group has been an increased foot patrol through the hub area. So they've now got 3 teams. We've got some new recruits through the latest recruitment round who have been deployed to Dunedin. So we've now got some street officers. You see them walking around. So there's a real visible presence there. And the security team that got the contract that work at the hub have been specifically trained in de-escalation, and they work closely with the police. So they do have a really good working relationship and escalate where they need to. I can't speak to the decisions in terms of why the hub was located where it is, but it is where it is, and we're optimistic that that increased police patrol presence, the foot patrol, is helping. In terms of the second question, in terms of the work program and what we might do is bring the work program to the next committee meeting. So there's some short, medium and long-term goals. Obviously the foot patrols is one tangible outcome, the security contract in terms of having a different focus is another. Business South are leading a proposal for something called a safe space. So they've got a number of businesses who are prepared to sign up to say that their shop is a safe space if someone's feeling unsafe, feeling unwell, wants to hop in there. So we're just trying to get that off the ground. There's some other things in terms of improved lighting that are all underway, but I think, and some of them are more long-term. Some of them are things like finding a youth drop-in space, a space where they can drop in if they're going to the hub and there's a delay between buses so that they can be off the street. We've also got members of the Principals Association, so we're working through things like the Princes Street overcrowding as part of that group. So I think if we bring that work plan back and you can see things that are short, medium and long term, and some of the actions that have been implemented, that will give it some increased visibility.
Seems like highly social responses in here. I'll come to you, Gretchen. Questions?
I think Ms. Saunders touched on it as well about what everyone's role in this as well. So we have today presenting a report that was commissioned by our council, which is fantastic, but owned by the inner city, not inner city, central city group. Myself, Mayor and police are part of an advisory group as well. So we're a group. Going forward, is it Otago Regional Council's role to report back and own that space?
I think we are one party that has a responsibility to report back because we have to take accountability for the actions that we've signed up to. And as part of that, I think visibility of the overall action program is not a bad thing. It will hold the other groups to account. Not that I have any reason to believe that they're not committed through that group and through the actions that are included in the action plan. But it's not the onus is on us to report and deliver on the actions that are ours. But as part of that, I think there is sharing the broader plan, so there's visibility of it is fine as well. But yeah, the clarity, we have direct responsibility for a number of actions, and they're listed in paragraph 9, just in terms of the examples of things that ORC has led on. And we need to continue to make sure that we deliver on those as our primary focus. But reporting on the broader suite is, something that just ensures transparency of what the group is discussing and committing to.
Do you think we could ask the chair of the group then to present on behalf of the group, if it's a group thing, and then present our own work streams?
Yeah, I think we can certainly invite the key members of that group, not even just the chair. I think, the key representatives from the different parties to present collectively. Yep.
Yeah, I would like to see that. That'd be a great idea. Elliot, did you have more to add there or questions?
Yeah, just 2 questions. So the first is sort of diving into the report itself under the 5th focus area around strengthening governance. The section sort of talks about the or a council with a capital C, and I'm just wondering, given a lot of the case studies that talks about and the work it's sort of referring to seem to be TAs or unitary councils, in particular in this section. And so I'm just wondering what the council is that it's referring to. Is it us or DCC basically? Or is it just a generic council?
Yeah, so look, I don't think it's pointing at a specific one. I think it just reflects that there are different operating environments in all of these jurisdictions. So obviously Auckland Council is set up differently with a transport CCO, which has sort of different level of control. Rotorua is probably pretty similar to us in that Bay of Plenty would run the public transport, the regional council, but the issues largely arise in public space, which are the responsibility of the territorial authorities. So they have a critical role to play in the management of that public space and any bylaws that may seek to change behaviours in that space. So I think that Dunedin City Council play a critical role here, and the fact that the group is focused on inner city safety, not bus hub safety, speaks to the role of DCC in terms of that overall management of that public space through the city. But again, they won't achieve anything on their own, but the leadership I think is quite a critical piece, and I suspect the reference in here points more to leadership in the public space than it does within the transport network.
Cool. Keep going on that. Just because I think that makes sense and was kind of the sense I got, although there was reference to a requirement to reporting to a specific council committee. Is that this committee, or is that a undecided sort of avenue of reporting?
So there's no formal reporting for this group currently. We will continue to report our actions through this committee. There's been, as far as I'm aware, no formal decision because it's not a formally established group. It's just a group that's been formed out of a desire to try and make some improvements, but it's not formally established or has a formal reporting structure. So I can't speak to where or if it's being reported in terms of DCC structure, but we will continue to report our bits through our public transport or the relevant committee, whatever that is in the future.
And then the other question I had was around just process on some actions, and I was curious in particular around bus stops and I guess the bus stands within the bus hub included in that in particular, because elsewhere in the report it sort of talked about colour as a potential small step that you can take to sort of brighten up a place, and that can have real meaningful impacts on the sense people get in the space and subsequently the actual safety of the space, and I'm wondering if it was decided that it would be smart to paint the bus stops in the hub, given that they're, I think, managed by, fairly correctly managed by DCC, but owned by us or paid for by us, but owned. What would the process be for getting one painted?
We are intending to bring council a work program of how we're going to use our infrastructure money for Dunedin, and obviously that will take into account the health and safety, the bus audit that we did with that health and safety lens that you directed us. The team haven't had a lot of time to digest the report, but there's no reason why the report can't be factored into how we spend money. So we do buy and install the shelters, and then we transition them across to DCC. So there's no reason why we can't change the look of them if that's an outcome that we're seeking to achieve.
Any further questions? Okay.
Oh, just on that, and appreciate that the design, I think initially on the bus hubs had been glass, to be clear, but the whole dynamics of that area has changed quite markedly in building, so that you don't have that visual from the car park area. It's now been built out and things. So design is important. The other one, and not wanting to go to Trevor Mallard and his Barry Manilow at the parliamentary, but sound can also be important. And we've never put, and it's easy to jest about these things, but sound can be very calming. We often build in traffic calming areas into design, but we don't do people calming. And and it's not actually referred here and referenced here. And I'm intrigued that it hasn't been, because it is used in some instances to calm people's behaviour in environments. I think they use it in hospitals and things, and I'm just wondering am I raising an issue and therefore it isn't in there because it isn't successful, or I'm just intrigued that it hasn't been.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know why it's not mentioned. I do know it's successful in supermarkets. Music changes shopping behaviour. But I'm guessing that it wasn't something that was used in the examples that the author pulled out.
It does look though that this the whole report is about taking really pro-social activity and preventing crime through inclusion and visibility. It doesn't actually rule out sound or music, but it's a good piece of work, and it's good to see OIC involved in this. I know we were involved in it for reasons that we didn't want to be involved in things for, but we are involved in it now, and it could possibly be argued that it's not our role, but I think it's brilliant to see us engaging with the other agencies towards this, and I wonder what its impacts might be in terms of thinking about other centres that we impact Queenstown in terms of public transport.
I think for us, one of the benefits of being involved is if we see things that work in spaces where people are congregating around our buses, then we can, transplant those across, other regions, including Queenstown. So certainly it enables us to have a more holistic view, and there's such a wide range of, parties involved that we learn things every time we have a meeting. We had one yesterday, we learned something new yesterday. So, it's a really useful space and a useful group of people with really good knowledge and skill sets to help all of us, really.
Which is more steps for us into our social role, or the part of our work that is social in the social spaces. So thank you for that. I don't think there are any more questions, and so we need to just note this report. Mover Clayton Elliott. Everyone seconded. Thank you very, very much. And so any further discussion on this? Say anything? No. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think we've mostly covered the general sense, but just really want to drive home that there's some really embedded sort of structural issues here that we have to acknowledge. I think that the socioeconomic factors, around homelessness and poverty and stuff, causing that crime, unrest, mental health, and then also the infrastructure issues that the report touches on really well. or infrastructure factors in these issues. And there is a general feeling of unsafety in the central city, and that's not uncommon for city centres. I recall OUSA raised it with DCC in their 9-year plan submission as well around lighting and stuff. And so these are really embedded structural issues that are pretty common across urban areas, and in particular areas where groups congregate like a transport hub. Doesn't mean that we can shirk all responsibility by any means, and there are key roles we are playing and continue to play. But it is really important to acknowledge the scope and the roots of these issues. I'm heartened by the fact we have already seen some small steps. Mentioned already the increased foot patrols of cops, and we've got a new sort of private security arrangement. We've had that safety campaign, which I think was really successful, and a bunch of other steps outlined in this report. And then I'm really eager to see the work programs that Anita said will be coming on the more sort of medium and long-term steps that we will take, that DCC will take, that other stakeholders like police and schools and local businesses and stuff can take. And so I'm excited to see us make progress on this, because it is an important issue, and we do have a role to play.
Thank you for that, Gretchen.
Thanks. Yeah, for us, it is a privilege to be running public transport in this city, and we don't take that lightly. We want to have a welcoming and preferred mode of travel in our public transport system. And it's easy to say that, but it's difficult to achieve at times. And we've seen, some very sad instances. But yeah, overall, I think safety is everyone's responsibility. It's one that we all must step up to. Our council needs to do the same. We need to take a close look at what are the facts of what's going on, and then look at, in the short term, what can we do? And we've done that, and we've made some changes, and they've been well reported. We also in the medium term, and that's what we're looking at here. What can we do that will actually be effective? And so we've had a good look at the stats and the facts around what are the instances that are occurring in the central city. Yes, bus hub, but yep, there's other ones too. And early Sunday morning is one that really stands out. And I don't think though that's a youth issue. There's other issues as well. So yeah, this is a whole of community issue. So we got the short, medium, and we've got the long term. And I think it requires collaboration. It requires looking at the hub. It requires looking broader than that as well to the central city. But there's a lot of benefit in doing that and coming together. And I know people would like to see immediately everything transformed, but actually safety and behaviour and all of those issues have already been discussed, that people do congregate in Central City and they behave as people, the good, the bad. Overall, it's generally really good. So I want to recognise that as well. There's been some amazing stuff that has been going on already, and a lot of it has actually been driven by youth themselves. The behaviour campaign that we've launched and actually was led by youth. There's been some amazing work happening in schools as well, led by youth. There's some fantastic people in our city. They're coming together. They're working together. This is actually going to have, and we're noticing already, I've been noticing through my role in the advisory group, and comments coming from many of the organisations, that actually it's bringing together key community groups in a way that's never happened before, and that will have enduring positive benefits for the city and community resilience to the shocks that we will have from time to time. If we're used to working together, we're used to collaborating, we meet regularly, we know each other. It's simply about people, and this is something that can simply be improved a lot if we work together and know each other well. So that I'm really pleased to see that happening. If you think of, for example, if we ever had a civil defence emergency, if all the organisations knew each other already, we can react, we can be resilient. It's more than just about the bus hub, this work. So just want to say thanks to everyone that has been involved to date. This is not the end by any means. And it's definitely not all about the Otago Regional Council either. I want to make that clear. We want to work particularly with our local government family, particularly with the DCC. Together we've got a real responsibility for that, particularly the space around the bus hub, and police as well, and all of the other organisations, the school. Everyone has their responsibility. I hope that we will continue to play a key role, but we need to be part of a much broader family in that, and that's what we're establishing here. I'm really pleased to see that happening. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Gretchen, and thanks for your continued commitment and work on this project. So with that, we'll put the motion. Vital reply, please.
The reason I'm exercising my right of reply is to say that I don't want to see this issue or the social issues blow out as a judgment on both our staff and their planning work, nor on the efficiency and effectiveness of the buses generally. It is just one small part, and if you go back to the previous report and the amount of complaints and bad behaviour and everything, they are very small compared to which you don't get is the gratitude and how important and what important social networks are provided by the bus service generally, not only getting people to places, but when you're on the buses, seeing how people interact and discuss and meet regularly on the buses. And that is an absolute success story. And I would rather that we were looking at how safe and how and turning this around and saying, generally, it is a very, very effective service. The numbers are going up because we're providing a good service. Congratulations to the team. Yes, this is important work to do, but it is not the benchmark of where we're at with how safe the service is. So thank you, but we need to ensure people, we are doing everything to ensure that the bad behaviour stops and that people are safe, but generally it is, and that comes from a great team of both private enterprise working in that space, generally people behaving well, and our team working in that space. So it's a very good story generally.
Thank you. Are we all done? I'll put that motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of this meeting today, which is we've got through in record time. Again, thanks to the team for that. I had a couple of comments to make. I wanted to comment on the resilience of our transport team that over this last year or so has managed to keep moving despite really unstable operating environments, and it has taken on issues and taken on public opinion, and that last has been really important to me, that we've taken on that public opinion and responded appropriately. Pretty much always we respond appropriately. Our work seems stable in this team and around this committee, and it's moving forward despite the challenging environment, and that's exactly the way to succeed. We're working well with our TAs in Dunedin. We know that they're happy with the way they're able to communicate with us and the way that they're working with us, and that's been a really productive arrangement. QLDC, they want to make some changes with how they work with us, and I don't see that we'll have a problem with that. We'll no doubt work through those changes and figure out how to work best with them, and they are facing some fairly solid challenges, so it's quite right that they are looking at us to help, and that will sometimes get a bit toey, I should imagine, because they're facing huge challenges. So I want to thank this committee for its support in working with all of those people and keeping the support in place for a transport team which is actually really successful. Thank you. With that, I will close the meeting. I'm not going to karakia because we're meeting again later in the day. Our work's not finished, but we've got a bit of time.